these are my 2026 bracket picks. Obviously, Duke over Siena. Easy pick. Siena doesn't stand a chance. TCU over Ohio State. That's 50-50. St. John's over Northern Iowa. Pretty safe pick. Kansas over Baptist. I feel like Baptist might stay close, but I don't know. UCF over Louisville does not seem to be a popular pick, but I think USF, could stay in it, could maybe win it. Michigan, that's probably an easy win for them. UCF over UCLA, not a popular pick, but could happen. UConn over Furman, pretty easy pick. Florida, obvious win. Iowa, it seems Iowa's the more picked team, even though they're the lower seed. Vanderbilt over McNeese, easy. Nebraska over Troy, I think that could be a close one. UNC over VCU's, pretty easy pick. I don't know why Penn is picked over Illinois here. That might be a mistake by me. I don't know why Penn is picked there. That's not a very good pick. St. Mary's over Texas A&M, pretty easy pick. Houston over Idaho, easy pick. Arizona's probably going to win by 20 against Long Island. Villanova over Utah State. This one's very close. I think Villanova will win by 5. Wisconsin over High Point. Arkansas over Hawaii. I think Arkansas will win by only a couple. I'm betting on Texas winning against NCSU and beating BYU. Gonzaga over Kennesaw State's pretty easy. I have the upset of Missouri over Miami. Not very highly picked. Purdue over Queens. Michigan beating the 16 seed. St. Louis over Georgia in the upset. Texas Tech over Akron. Alabama winning. I bet that Tennessee will beat Miami, Ohio if Miami, Ohio advances. I also had Santa Clara upsetting Kentucky back there. I also have Iowa State beating Santa Clara in the next round, though. Oh, and Iowa State over Idaho. Virginia beating Tennessee pretty easily. I have Texas Tech beating Alabama, which doesn't seem to be highly picked, but I think Texas Tech will go deep. Michigan beating St. Louis easy. Purdue over Missouri seems to be very highly picked. Purdue is one of the top teams. I think Gonzaga will beat Texas, and then Wisconsin will upset Arkansas. I think Villanova will upset Arizona. Arizona is a 1 seed, but they don't seem too good in my opinion. I feel like they will get knocked out decently early. I also have Houston over St. Mary's. Houston is looking very strong, and I have UNC over Penn. I don't know why I have Penn going this deep. This is one of my hear me out picks. I think Penn has a chance to go far, but not this far. I also have Vanderbilt beating Nebraska, even though they're a lower seed. Florida over Iowa. UCF upsetting UConn. I think UCF could go deep this year. Michigan State over South Florida. That's an easy pick. St. John's beating Kansas, even though they're a lower seed. And obviously I had Duke beating TCU. Then I have St. John's over Duke in a crazy upset. Michigan State beating UCF. Vanderbilt upsetting Florida, which seems to be decently picked. I feel very strongly about that. Houston beating North Carolina. Villanova upsetting yet another opponent and beating Wisconsin. Purdue over Gonzaga. Texas Tech upsetting the last number 1 seed remaining, Michigan. And Iowa State beating Virginia. And then I have Iowa State beating Texas Tech and Purdue beating Villanova. And then Houston beating Vanderbilt and St. John's upsetting Michigan State. And then I think Houston and Purdue will win in the Final Four and go to the finals. And Purdue might come out on top. I feel like this would be a close game if this did happen, but Purdue would come out on top. And then this is my better bracket where I don't have Pennsylvania going deep. Obviously I have Duke, TCU as an upset over Ohio State, St. John's, Kansas, Louisville over South Florida. This is the one where I didn't pick the upset, and a lot of them I have South Florida. UCF over UCLA, that's another upset I've picked. Michigan State obviously winning. UConn winning. Florida winning. Iowa, even though they're a lower seed, is actually projected to win. I picked Vanderbilt over McNeese. I also have VCU upsetting UNC, but Nebraska winning. Illinois over Penn. Texas A&M upsetting St. Mary's. Houston beating Idaho. Arizona destroying Long Island. Villanova over Utah State, which is actually an upset. Wisconsin over High Point. Arkansas over Hawaii. BYU beating either Texas or NCSU. Gonzaga over Kennesaw State. That could be a close game, considering they lost to Portland. I also have Miami beating Missouri. Purdue over Queens is another easy pick. Michigan over UMBC. That's not going to be a close game. Michigan's probably going to win by 20. Georgia over St. Louis. That's 50-50 matchup. Yeah, pretty much 50-50. Texas Tech over Akron. I have Akron picked in like five different brackets. That's 50-50. Alabama over Hofstra, pretty easy pick. Tennessee over Miami, Ohio. If Miami, Ohio advances. If SMU advances, that could be different. Didn't mean to swipe there. That was an accident. Tennessee winning, Virginia winning. I think Kentucky's actually going to win this one pretty easily. Iowa State obviously advancing. Iowa State knocking out Kentucky. Feel pretty confident about. Virginia beating Tennessee. That's probably pretty easy. Texas Tech University actually upsetting Alabama, I feel like is a very good possibility. Michigan over Georgia, easy pick. Purdue's going to blow out Miami if it does come to this. BYU upsetting Gonzaga, I think could happen. Doesn't seem very likely, but I think it will be a close game. Arizona beating Villanova, they're probably going to win by like 10. Houston over Texas A&M, yet again, probably going to win by 10. Illinois over VCU, that's pretty easy pick. And then Vanderbilt actually upsetting Nebraska. They're more picked here, but they're even a lower seed. Florida over Iowa pretty easily. UConn over UCF pretty easily. Michigan State over Louisville, I feel like that's 50-50. Kansas over St. John's, that one's also pretty close to 50-50 in my opinion. Probably only win by a couple. And Duke over TCU. Duke actually beating Kansas here. I feel like Michigan State will upset UConn. A lot of people have UConn going all the way this year. I think Michigan State will advance farther. Florida over Vanderbilt. I think Illinois will upset Houston this year. I think that they will actually advance to the Elite Eight. Arizona over Arkansas. Purdue over BYU, I think is pretty easy pick. Purdue was one of the powerhouses in this bracket. Michigan over Texas Tech, and Virginia actually upsetting Iowa State. I feel pretty confident in that. Not a lot of other people have picked that, but I think Virginia will upset number 1 Michigan and knock them out. I think Purdue will upset Arizona and knock them out. I think Florida will unfortunately knock out Illinois, and Duke will advance as well. I think Purdue will go to the finals here. I think Purdue will beat Virginia, and I think Duke will go to the championship, and I think they will also win it all.